Call this March 27th, 2019, Lawrenceburg Redevelopment Commission to order. Could we have a roll call, please?
Executive Director Brian Messmore.
Here.
Chairman Mel Davis.
Here.
Vice Chairman Randy Abner.
Here.
Member Owen Cross.
Here.
Member Paul Seymour Sr.
Present.
School Board Member Brian Johnson.
Present.
And City Attorney Del Weldon.
Here.
Thank you. We have 3 sets of minutes, at least I do in my packet, to approve this evening, or this afternoon. We have 2 work sessions and 1 full meeting. Has everyone had a chance to read through those? If so, I'll entertain a motion to approve minutes of the last 3 meetings, the 2 work sessions and the regular meeting.
So moved.
Second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed. Announcements, Brian Messmore?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good
You're
evening.
welcome, sir.
Hey, under announcements, I'd first like to, just so everybody kind of understands, we missed a meeting. We're sneaking this one in tonight to try to go over updates primarily, not a lot of action, but I didn't want to wait until the next meeting before we had a chance to keep everybody fresh on some of the things that are going on. The second thing I'd like to announce is that between Kelly and I, we left Mr. Knoll off the agenda. That was our fault. He clearly should have been on there, other than the fact that we were trying to move some items to the April meeting, and we thought each other was contacting Mike, and consequently neither one of us did. So I apologize for that.
We'll add him to old business.
That's correct, please. And the final thing is, I'd like to remind the board that, or bring to the board's attention, that on April 1st at 5:30 we will have a joint session. That is a regular scheduled council meeting evening. There's a sequence of meetings. Our portion of that will be at 5:30.
Is that a work session or executive session?
That's a work session.
Yeah.
Is that
Or meeting.
Monday.
Monday, April 1st.
Yeah. That's April Fool's Day, too. Huh?
That's May 1, not April 1.
April 1st.
April 1st, okay.
March, April, next Monday.
Anything else, Mr. Messmore?
No, I'm just next under new business, so I will remain here.
Okay, can we do the financial report real quick while you're standing there?
As of March 20th, the balance for redevelopment is $2,801,680.23, and after projected monies towards projects, it's $1,756,932.23.
A motion to approve the financial report.
We do not need a
I'll
motion
second that.
for that.
All in favor?
Okay,
All
Approved.
opposed? Thank you.
I guess.
New business.
Okay, in your packets, you have the Lawrenceburg Redevelopment Commission financial update. I just wanted to briefly discuss the purpose and the key elements of this report. It is prepared in conjunction with the clerk treasurer by Reedy Financial. It is a requirement. The treasurer is required to report the financial status of the Redevelopment Commission prior to April 1st. It's primarily focused around the TIF district and the elements and financial associations with that. The required presentation shall be made at a meeting of Redevelopment Commission, which invites all overlapping units as well, and that will happen in the near future. And we'll go over this at that time with them. Just in general, At this point in time, our ending cash balance is about $372,591. That is in the TIF fund. And in addition to that, we can assume that under current improvements that have been made within the TIF area, we will be receiving about $357,000 annually into our TIF fund.
When's that start?
It's already started.
Did we get a raise?
No,
Just putting it there.
not that I'm aware of. And it also included, in the very back of that, you'll see the list of the parcel numbers and owners that are in that TIF district. So just wanted to provide that brief overview, again, purpose and key elements of that report.
All right. Anybody have any comments or concerns? Okay, Brian. Next item on new business is the Steel Properties.
Yes. Tonight, how we've kind of organized this, contacted all the previous builders who have built over the past several years. I had 2 respond. It was Steel Properties and Staub Construction. In your packets, you will see their proposals. What I am recommending this evening is that you take those, you review those, you make recommendations and/or improvements that you would like to see on those, any other items for discussion, and we will review those with the developers on April 8th and award them at that time. I have also already indicated to Mr. Steele that he needed to provide, just because it was obvious, he needed to provide a letter from the bank and some more real pictures of the home itself, so it wasn't a sketch.
Do you talk to them any other time than when they come to see you? I mean, we've got some criteria that haven't been followed up to this point that I'd like to see enforced from this point on, really.
Okay.
I'd like to get together with you and we could go over what I feel like, that we ought to talk about it.
Okay.
And because they're asking for 2 lots, and that's a no-no when we first started.
Well, I think, yeah, in this particular case, I think they're asking that they are willing to build that structure on any one of the lots that we choose for them to build on. Their expectation is they only get 1 lot, and that, I agree with you. There's only 2 people, and there's 3 lots, so there's going to be 1 lot that will be undeveloped.
Yeah.
Until completion of until certificate of occupancy has been granted and we move
The
forward.
1 lot directly across the face of the Mexican restaurant,
Yes,
is that just 1 lot?
that's just 1 lot.
Now, how about across west? Is one of the lots we're talking about the other one, and/or?
Yes,
And is that just 1 lot, or is that
that's just
2?
1 lot.
That there was 2 houses on there that
That was a old garage and a home. It was surveyed into 1 lot.
all right,
The one that was converted over in the
Yeah.
alley?
Yeah.
You're talking-
that's a pretty deep lot.
Nice lot.
Yeah, it is.
Pretty nice one.
All right. Now, is there anybody here representing Steel, or?
Mr. Steele's here. I don't see Mr. Staub, but he was aware that, we were going to take these and rather than receive them and make decisions the same day, understanding that we want these homes to fit the landscape in the neighborhood. We're looking for more curb appeal, landscaping. We want to take this advantage to negotiate with these developers to provide the best product that we can provide on these particular lots. Yeah.
Will we have anything to say about the price? Because I've got a big question I'd like to, and I'll go through you. We sell these lots at $100.
We have, that's correct.
Yes. And they're asking anywhere from $150,000 to $179,000 for a home. And we're doing this so that these homes would have a better price tag for people to buy them and get them to come downtown. Do you think it would be, in my right to ask them what kind of a price they have on the lot as far as showing it to the potential buyer? In the price.
I think you, as a board member, have the right to ask and request whatever you'd like to know.
Now, I would like to know that, so I'll get,
I mean, yeah.
when we have our next meeting, that's gonna be a question, okay?
Yeah, so you'd like to see a design and the estimated cost of the.
All I wanna know is, we sell the lot for $100. Are they putting the value of that lot at $20,000 on the price of the house?
You want to know the value of the lot.
Yeah.
Or, if I may, so you're asking is if it's a $160,000 home, that is X number of board feet plus a little profit, not and the land.
Well, I don't know what lots are going for
Right.
downtown, but we know what it was appraised for, don't we?
Yes.
Empty.
As it sits today, right?
Yeah.
That's just a question I've got in my mind, fellas. Is that fair?
Yes.
Yep.
I agree. Yes, it is.
Anything else, Brian?
Are you guys okay with that process? That way we can have, I think, a
That'll be April.
a
the
better
8th.
product in the end.
Look at this.
Yes, there's a question in the back. Could you come up here, please?
I'm just curious if you could possibly postpone the decisions on these. I know personally someone that's reached out to Mr. Messmore, very interested in building a lot and also bringing her own money to the table and a business to Lawrenceburg. And I have here what Brian had told her, and basically he said that he's not going to be able to get to me on the docket for Wednesday. He said they have 1 million things to go over, and he would hate for me to drive all the way here and not be able to get it in. He's 99.9% sure that that's what would happen. And he would like her to come in and meet with him first. So I feel like there was other people interested in these lots, and shouldn't everybody get a shot versus, or have you already decided on still and
We're
stub?
just reviewing it, are we?
As Brian stated, the proposals were due in, and I forget the date, but we advertised 4 proposals, sent out to how many builders?
Well, they said they had to go through Brian, and that's what she did, and he called back and said that. So I just don't feel really everybody was is that your process? They have to talk to him first before
Yes,
they can
that
get on
is.
the agenda?
Yeah, that is.
Well, he's telling people that he's 99% sure that you're not going to do that tonight, and she would have been here.
Well, we aren't going to do it tonight. We just accepted their proposals.
Well, will you accept hers if she has it here this week?
The deadline was when? Now, you'll have to
Have
talk to
Mr.
Brian.
Messmore telling her that she can't get on the docket for Wednesday, Mel.
Okay, but you'll have to talk to Brian about that. I'm not in charge of the docket.
Are you interested in tabling it until she has that opportunity?
I'll go back up and explain.
Okay.
All right. The lady that she's referring to, as I understand it, is a commercial business and would not, these are
Qualify.
residential lots.
Yeah.
So I've asked her to come in so we can try to find her a suitable place for her commercial business.
Okay.
Do we know exactly what the business is?
Realty.
Real estate?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's my understanding. Absolutely no intention of ill will or trying to move somebody out of the way for anybody else.
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
Come back up, please.
I believe she was interested in both, but he can.
Well, okay, these areas that these lots are on are zoned residential, period. So if she will come in and talk to Brian, and he can maybe assist her in finding a lot that's zoned either or strictly commercial.
Okay. And if she's still interested in building a house, would she have the same opportunity?
Yeah.
Okay.
Next item, Dale Weldon, status of city-owned commercial buildings. And
Yes, Your Honor. If it pleases the commission, I'd just ask to table both of these items. I think it's premature because we haven't gotten proposals yet. So the status of city-owned buildings and then Union Hall proposal. We did cover the, some of the city-owned buildings yesterday. We had the work session, so if we could just table both of those.
Sure. Need a motion to table those two items on the agenda?
I'll make a motion to table both of those on the agenda.
Second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Passed. So they're tabled till, is there a date?
Just indefinitely. I'll
Okay.
put them back on. Thank
Okay.
you, Your Honor.
All right. Old business, Del Weldon Hickory House Barbecue.
Yes, sir, Your Honor. If it pleases the commission, we've received a formal written offer from the owners of Hickory House Barbecue through their attorney. And what they propose in their request today is that they be granted permission to move to the city of Aurora and keep the funds that we gave them. So I would just need a vote to either accept or reject that offer.
Anybody want to make a comment or a motion?
I'll make a motion that we let this continue as is, this letter, no, and for you to handle the situation.
I'll second that motion.
Yes, sir.
And I like that.
That's a good vote. I
Moved
appreciate
and
that.
seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
And just another, I guess, a quick update, it's an unfortunate situation, obviously, they didn't intend to go out of business, and they're, good people that made a legitimate effort, I believe. So the process moving forward, we're not gonna do anything to hurt them, we'll do just whatever the kind of the minimum things we need to do to recover the money. We've got two things in play, and we'll never kind of weigh one more than the other, so.
Just gotta protect our investment.
Yeah.
Get our investment.
Yeah, but I can assure you that, I'll treat them very kindly and respectfully through this process. I think they deserve that.
Well, would you be involved with the padlocks over in the strip mall?
No, and of course, that's an issue with the landlord, and that's part of, I think, what they're asking for help on, and that's really something we can't help with.
That's
So
a lot of our part,
well, the,
equipment on the inside of that building.
yes, sir, Mr. Seymour, and so at some point, the first step is just asking for the money back, and then the next step is to kind of figure out how they may pay it back. The equipment was used as collateral, to give us something to attach to that they could maybe sell. My understanding is that they're in a dispute with their landlord. The landlord sees that property, whether that's appropriate or inappropriate, really we can't weigh in on. That's a dispute that they'll have legally between them and the landlord. Hopefully that works out in their favor. It seems like it must be if they're prepared to open a new store in Aurora. And of course, we wish them well in that endeavor. So, however, we need to get this money back to redevelopment to be able to use for other good projects and good people that want to benefit downtown. We'll take all of those steps.
Any other questions? Low Miller funding agreement, Dell.
Yes, sir, Your Honor. If it pleases the commission, you have in your packets a proposed funding agreement for the Andrew Low Miller Enterprises project he presented. If you all recall, to the commission, there was a vote taken to approve his request. And so this document is essentially just kind of verbatim everything he presented and asked for and everything that you voted to give to him. And we've also attached as an exhibit the presentation, the written materials that he presented, because I felt it was most appropriate to make that part of the deal. He presented this information, and based on that, you made the decision to fund him. So the document just reflects that. I've spoken with Mr. Low Miller a couple of times about this agreement. He's actually deployed right now, and so he's out of town serving in the reserves. He did send an email, however, and wanted to give us a quick update. He said that his loan is in progress. The work bids have and are being collected. The awning, he will be removing the large overhead awning in the front parking lot and just returning that space for parking. It's a nice structure in good shape, but we don't have a use for it. If the city could use it for a park or something, you're welcome to have it. So kind of imagine that structure that's in the front parking lot there. So it sounds like there may be some opportunities for something to be used in that space, and that may be a cool location for green space. And then finally, permits. I met Carl Fryman on site to begin drawing permits and was informed I'll need a change of use. We're working through this. I've consulted with several engineers, including Horezo Engineering. If that is the case, we'll need to do an extensive amount of drawings. Between the drawing and change the process, could be looking at 4 to 6 months to close. Let me know if you have any questions. And of course, the agreement is also based on payment upon closing. I think that's most appropriate because right now they just have an option on the property. So if once they close, then we would submit payment under this agreement. So what I'm asking for today is that this agreement be accepted and approved. We would enter into this agreement with Low Miller Enterprises, and then if and when they close, we would submit payment.
Any questions for Mr. Weldon? Not, I'll accept a motion to approve the agreement.
Approve the agreement. Make the motion.
Moved. Is there a second?
I will second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
He held his hand up.
Okay. Opposed?
I hold my hand down.
Okay. Okay. Roll call, please.
Member Randy Abner.
Aye.
Member Owen Cross.
Aye.
Member Paul Seymour Sr.
Nay?
Passed 2 to 1.
Do you want to know why?
Sure. Go ahead. I want to hear why.
I just think we're opening up a can of worms, fellas. There's more than one real estate business in Lawrenceburg, and I just feel like, well, they may show up. All right, that's just my
Right.
personal opinion.
We're cleaning up an eyesore down there to make it look more attractive down there off of 50, because, you know, when you first come through town there, it doesn't look very good, and if we can clean that area up and put some businesses in there.
Most of the unions I know have already got a program for their,
Right.
I just can't understand how he's gonna get a carpentry shop training program in that building along with his real estate. We've got a high school, and then you've got a Ivy Tech.
Mhm.
I don't know whether Ivy Tech's got a carpentry shop or not as
I
far as
don't think
teaching.
they do. No.
No.
Don't have any idea.
I
Okay.
don't think so.
Brian Messmore,
Yes.
row house
And
update.
I do want to step back, and I just want to you guys to make sure so that you don't misunderstand. When I was contacted by the individual that has been mentioned, it was my complete understanding that this was they were looking for a place to establish a realty
Yeah.
location. Complete understanding. If I messed that up, that did happen. I don't know. So when we talked about coming to the meeting, I said, I don't really understand why you would need to come, because I haven't found a place for a real estate location. I don't know what purpose that would be, and the agenda's busy, and it would be.
Sure.
I don't know. I didn't see the value. I said, I think what's most important is that we get together and we walk up and down the street and look for commercial property that would benefit your business. So I just want to make sure that's clear. Okay? Thank you.
Okay.
Row house update. Man, there's a lot going on, guys and girls. So what I did is I authorized RC Engineering to design the row house wall facing the park to meet the requirements that were described by one of the interested developers, which I also believe would be the same for anybody who would want to occupy that building and have interaction with the park. So I think that the the value of the initial engineering will hold true for whatever proprietor decides to develop that property next to the park. So in that, we will have plan view, elevation view, cross-section, and some details enough that we can go for budgetary pricing. So at that point, we would be able to compare the restoration of the existing wall, which has no park interaction access, to the potential of shoring up those floors, removing the wall, reframing that with interactive access on the first floor and attractive window settings on the second and third floors. So I've asked for him to expedite that. He's got to get some stuff off his desk this week. I'm hoping to have another initial meeting on site in short term. But I really believe that regardless of the end user there, this will be the picture and the design, the beginning of the design for that facade to be what we would all like to see it be next to the park and next to the stage.
And I forget his last name. Tony involved in this process, Brian?
We used his basic design to get the conversation started. I will tell you that I have had some initial conversations with Mr. Stroud on that property. You know, we would be into a level of start to discuss, you know, some contract details, which we can probably schedule fairly soon to get that process started.
Get a price, rough price on what that's gonna cost.
Rough price, including the wall, $775,000.
My goodness, we building a skyscraper? Wow.
So, as you know, so we would need to get into some serious contract discussion for a price tag on something like that.
Would we foot that bill the way you're going?
No,
I don't wanna foot that bill.
I would never go that way.
You hadn't sounded any different.
Pardon me?
I said I didn't catch the difference if you said that.
No, you asked me, somebody asked me how much the total project cost.
Right.
Rough estimate is, and that's about what it is,
Is that
including the wall.
Is that finished on the outside and inside?
That's correct. Open for business on the first floor, white box, second and third floors,
And
egress, fire.
He hasn't been involved in the talking of that project?
Yeah, that's why I said I have talked to Mr. Stroud.
But not that price.
He has given me his first rough estimate of total project cost, including the wall. In order for us to begin to discuss contract, he would have to put his terms on paper, and we would have to begin the negotiation process.
Firehouse update.
Firehouse update, to this date, I have not been able to reach an agreement that I think is in the best interest of the city. So I think there's, you know, depending upon when we get any paperwork from the other interested developer, we could probably, you know, consider another executive session to work out some of the details in the contract. But at this point, I haven't.
It's a big deal. I don't wanna have the firehouse come back to us once we send it out. I wanna make sure we do this right and get it done, so we can get a restaurant in there.
Any other comments or questions?
What you're saying, though, is that you don't want the city involved in a restaurant.
I don't want us involved in a restaurant either. I'd like to get it out there, let somebody, a private person own this thing. We can gain tax money off this thing, we got a lot of property that we get tax dollars from.
Well, you remember, in the executive session, we did discuss the structure of
Right.
the deal, so we have kind of
Yeah,
talked
we'll
about
go to
that, so it remains in those terms.
Any other questions or comments? Maple Street?
Maple Street. Well, if you remember, we have been trying to get residential development on that property. And we had an interested developer, an idea. Of course, we would have had to have, advertised to the public if we would have continued much farther down this path because that's the way we'd have to do it. But in this process of understanding, I got to the point where I had to figure out, how far this thing could go if we went residential. So met with ATC, really digging and trying to find out what the implications were if we continued down the path with residential on that property. As we know, there's lead, arsenic, and
Mercury?
I can't remember the third one. So, so what I came away with, bottom line is that I don't think it's in the best interest of the city to pursue residential development on that property. Gave it a good shot. Just some bullet points. We already own it. We know what's on it. We have the knowledge. It's 11-year-old testing data, so it might mean that we would have to go out and do some more testing to even move forward. The water in that area, if there was a development in there, there would have to be serious consideration given to the drainage system and what effects there are on the water below the surface there, which could compound not only design but the expense of the product. There's the obvious disposal of the spoils that, would have to be removed from the site. It doesn't appear that you can move all of it around and seal it all up and be good with that kind of a development. IDEM would require comfort letter. So that would be, another barrier, an unknown, and if we got to that point, I don't know how many nickels and dimes would be adding up on us to even get to that point, and I'm really concerned about our exposure to get to that point. And that alone would be 6 months or longer to get a response. So if we were trying to get this thing to market, we're already
What you're saying
over a year
is,
out.
Could we put something on that building as long as we put it on a slab?
It
Like
would have to be
that
commercial.
building?
So there's just a lot of uncertainty, a lot of delays, and I think we all know would equal some amount of dollars. And the long-term risk for the city, I just don't feel is best to proceed any further down the residential route on Maple Street.
Did ATC or whoever the geotech was give you any indication, Brian, as to how deep that contamination might be? Or how many cubic yards of dirt would have to move? Or
Well, I think that
Remove.
would have required additional testing.
okay,
Do you recall any, I think it was bumping up on $1 million. And again, that was described as a very conservative worst-case scenario. But as you see, the combination of these elements and time, it became a real concern to me. And so I'm recommending that we do not proceed down the residential path on this property, and that we take some time to discuss what we think highest and best use might be, and try to, figure something out and target some commercial kinds of products that we would see that fit in that community, within that neighborhood.
Okay. Main Street update? Oh, I'm sorry, is there any other questions?
I got one.
Go ahead,
I
Paul.
might be way early. On our claims we've got here, I've got one from ATC for over $5,000 that we're supposed to justify, I guess. Is that for this this location, or is it for the location where we're talking about the apartment complex?
Combination.
It might be a combination.
It is a combination.
Well, my question to you is it, and maybe everybody, is it, did we give that property on High Street to the developer yet?
Technically, no. But you are jumping ahead, too, by the way.
Yeah, but I like it.
So, and to your point, I did look back in July when we were discussing with Flaherty and Collins the potential of the project, and we had met several times, and we're kind of agreeing that this thing's going to start rolling. I authorized and I asked for ATC to go ahead and begin phase one on that property to expedite or not delay anything later on in the process.
At our
we
ex-
would
at
we
our
would have
expense?
needed it for ourselves anyway, but so there weren't any further delays in getting this thing off and rolling. I asked for ATC to do phase one testing.
Do some soil samples, soil
Yes.
borings.
Yeah.
And as Mario says, are we responsible to have that property shovel ready?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
The Are you asking about the Flaherty and Collins property?
Talking, yes, yes.
No, we don't. We're not required to make any alterations physically to the property. That'll be the developer.
But we're getting bills for it.
Well,
Oh, but the
we did
testing
just for
data
the soil
is
testing.
okay.
Okay,
It's okay for development.
all right.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Hey, Dennis retired, I'm taking over.
I can't win if I say anything, can I?
No, you can't.
No,
You're doing a
you
good
cannot.
All right,
Sit down, Brian.
I'll shut up.
No, thank you. No, that's cool. I mean, it's good. There's nothing wrong with that. Like, I had to go back through my emails, and Kelly was very proud of me that I was able to complete that task on my own today and find the supporting documentation, so.
Kelly did it.
Shocking.
You ain't-
Yeah.
Any other questions or comments?
Have we heard any more from the group that's gonna build down there? We heard anything from them?
Yeah, we talk to them almost daily,
Okay,
and that's
okay.
the meeting. The joint meeting April 1st is to approve the eventual property transfer. We're not doing the transfer yet. Well, there'll be a formal closing where we transfer the property over. But development agreement is good. The payment structure will also be approved Monday. That's why we have the Economic Development Commission formed and ready to go. So we'll do a lot of activity to establish the foundation for both the funding and the property transfer. But the zoning is already good. We thought we might have to make some changes, and we don't. There is a small change that we have been asked to take a look at, and Mr. Blondell will be reaching out to you, Mr. Clark. We just got this, but they want to square off one of the corners in the back, so we may look at kind of a plat alteration, but not a.
Have they changed the number of the apartments they're gonna put in
No, absolutely not. So all the protections that both the city and redevelopment have asked for are all in there.
Any other questions or comments? Main Street update?
Yeah, I believe in your packets, we have the Main Street update as usual. I just would add a couple comments to that this evening, that we have to fund the first-time home buyer program, so you'll see a transfer in there. We just don't have enough money to
Defund it.
to fund the program at this point, which we knew we were going to need to do anyway. So
Okay.
you'll see that, correct?
Oh, I actually need a motion for that to get that approved
go
so
ahead
I
and-
can attach it to the claim. So I have the minutes to attach.
Okay.
Would you review the amount, and then if we could get a motion, please?
It's $139,496.20.
That's what we need to transfer?
Yes,
Okay. I need a motion.
it's 139.
Okay.
I need a
Thousand.
motion to approve that transfer.
So moved.
Second?
I'll second this motion.
And we have,
All in favor?
oh, I'm
Aye.
sorry. We have 5 potential in various stages of development at this time, and hopefully, if it works out well, and the realtor, commercial person also wants a home, then it could be 6.
Okay.
So that's healthy for the community.
Well, I just personally, I think it's a good program. It does what it's designed to do, I think, help people get downtown. And that's pretty much what we wanted, fill up some empty lots and get some good people down here.
And I had one more note on Main Street. This came up on one particular project, but I will be reviewing with them to make sure we have a process in place to make sure that the project is complete to specifications.
Okay.
Because we had, sometimes some of the folks have a hard time getting things done, and not in a bad way, it's just hard for them, and we could probably help them a little better if we just make sure that was buttoned up.
Yeah, we had some issues.
Yeah. They just don't know sometimes, you know. So,
Any other questions or comments for Brian? Okay, we've added an item to old business, and that's Mr. Mike Knoll.
Thanks for having me back. As we left it last time, and I made a presentation to the board, and I believe at that point it was tabled. And then I invited anyone to contact me directly if they wanted any additional information. I didn't have anybody contact me. So I'm here, if you have any additional questions for me. I did submit my plans to the state. My architect contacted me. I did have a change, pretty substantial change, because it involves sprinkler system that has to be added, or change in design of the whole thing so that it will be fire protected.
You have to do that to the whole building then, once you do that,
Right.
because of
Yeah.
the year of the building and
Well, it's just what you're going to use, and if you change use, there's different issues with the state.
issues. We had issues with that with the cattle barn at the fairground a few years ago.
Right, yeah. So once you start opening that up, they're going to dictate to you what you want to do. So if you want to continue with your project. Any questions for me pertaining to?
I left your paperwork at home. I'm sorry. I got a question.
Yep,
The total cost, estimated cost of the project.
288,520. Actually,
And you're asking for a percentage.
percentage, and I realized I gave you a number before. I mean, if you want to go back to that old number, I would just have to come up, because my gap's kind of opened up a little bit more
Quite a bit.
with my change.
What percentage are you asking for?
It's about 35% is my true gap between what I can borrow and what I can do with funding that I currently have to make this project work.
Anybody got a calculator?
Mel's working. Mel's working on that.
I'm just writing.
Okay.
It's
5% of 2.
$100,982.
How much?
$100,982.
Would be 30?
Let me make sure.
Get this big calculator out.
That's so I can see it.
Yeah.
Randy.
I'll borrow my glasses.
$100,982. Be 35%.
On 8932.
Mr. Chairman?
Well, I'd like to present it to the board that the percentage that he's asking for, I feel is a little high, maybe a lot high. And if there's a number in one of the board members' minds, we could present to him before we travel any further. Even the percentage number.
Mr. Chairman?
Like I said, it was my fault that, when I came to you the first time, I would take the 35% of the original number, even though that, I'm having to increase it 28,100 over what I had originally anticipated in quotes for. Just something that came back from the state out of my control.
Do you want to table this for further discussion?
I would like to table it and let you guys think about it a little while, because I've got my number, but I'm not going to shove it out here unless you guys think about it.
Is that a motion?
That's my motion.
Okay. Motion, second?
Second.
Second. Moved and seconded to table. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Would it give you enough time to have it back on the meeting for Monday?
I'll probably see you on
Monday.
the Canal Street over on that
Monday?
project.
I'd be happy to come back at that time.
Monday's meeting's not a redevelopment meeting.
We have a joint session, but
It's,
we
it's just
wouldn't.
a special work session.
Okay.
When's the next redevelopment?
April 8th.
What is that?
April 8th.
On the 8th?
Yes.
Okay. I'll put it back on for then. And anytime somebody wants to contact me to go over anything, be happy to do that. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Kelly.
Yes. Sure. Need some help?
Is this public comment, Mr. Chairman?
I just wanted to take a minute. I'm no longer on redevelopment, as Paul said, I'm retired. But I wanted to say that it's been a pleasure working with Kelly and with Brian's office. And it's been an honor to work and serve with the redevelopment commissioners that are here, as well as the ones that were here before when we originally came. It was a little over 3 years, but again, it was a pleasure and an honor to be with you guys. So I just wanted to say that publicly. Thanks.
It was a bright star in my life.
And you've done a very, very good job tonight, Paul.
Dennis, I'd like to thank you for your service to the city. Mr. Snyder?
Tom Schneider, 27 East High. I'd like to comment a little bit about Mr. Knoll's project. Mr. Knoll is an age-old, he's been here from the beginning. He built this building up there when it was one of the first buildings that was constructed up there. He has stood the test of time through all sorts of competition. When the city built the center down here, they went to him to get all the proper equipment in there, and he did it without standing up and saying, well, you're going to compete with me and you want me to do this. He said nothing. Okay? If the port comes, we're going to need the type of offices that he's going to convert his building to. Okay? And so there's still a risk, even if it's going to cost $225,000 and the you're going to contribute 75 or whatever you're going to contribute, he's still on the hook for 150,000. So he's still at risk. So all I'm asking is that you give consideration to someone who's been here from the beginning, who has acted in good faith every time something comes up that is in competition with him. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Snyder.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I think there's only one other person up here who has a microphone, so it's, are we in public comment?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I was going to make a comment before that. May I take the podium, please?
Pardon me?
May I take the podium?
If you want to, sure.
Yeah. I think, we've done a pretty good job this year at focusing on redevelopment of the downtown entertainment district, funding the partnership with Main Street, and I think that's our area of focus, and I think that's a great place to be focused on. I think Mr. Seymour earlier said something about, the project out on 50, the realtor, and then Mr. Knoll's request. I think what I would recommend is that if we're going to venture outside of our downtown district and focusing on the redevelopment of downtown, that we should have a conversation and decide what kind of program that would be and what funding levels we are willing to fund them at, because I'm concerned about not having those limits to our exposure on the programs that we offer for development opportunities in our community. Thank you.
All right, we're going to approve the claims before we ask for any more comments, before I forget about it. Like a motion to approve the claims? Moved?
I'll second it.
Second? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Any more comments from the audience?
My name is Tim Denning. About 6 months ago, there was discussion about the Maple Street property being used for a senior citizen building, and it was determined that the soil wouldn't support that type of structure. And I distinctly recall Mike Clark said they were going to continue to keep testing to see if they couldn't get the soil up to par enough to support that type of structure. Well, evidently that's not going to happen. So I guess my question is, does that mean that the potential senior building project is no longer a focus, or what's going on with that?
Just going to give you my opinion, Tim. I don't think so. I think what the problem is you either have to cap that whole property with a hard surface, or you have to remove whatever surface is exposed to the elements. So if someone comes forward with a senior building that wants to cap the whole surface, I don't see any reason why we couldn't develop it. But right now,
I guess my question is there no focus on a senior building other than that particular property, or?
that I can't answer.
Well, absolutely not. So two things. One, that was just that specific project, and we had a specific builder lined up, and it wasn't necessarily the quality of the soil, but the testing of the soil that required a certain footprint. The building that was proposed was not going to be large enough to support building on that site. And what Mr. Messmore presented today was just in general, in terms of residential development on that site, probably not going to happen. However, senior living is a huge focus, and not just building new senior housing, but improving our current senior housing. So I can tell you that this administration has been in constant talks with the senior living facilities that we already have, and looking at ways to improve them. And then if a new senior facility can be built, it certainly will be. So senior housing, subsidized housing, as well as new housing, those are all focuses. So every single style and phase of housing has been a focus of this administration.
That's great. Because looking around this room, we're going to need it.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman,
Sir.
Mr. Chairman,
Can I give
Mel.
you a high sign?
Mr. Chairman,
Any other comments from the audience?
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I just want to, and Tim, I appreciate your comments. We have tried a couple times for senior housing over there through the tax credit program, and you know, we could try it again, but the problem happens is when you get the number of units required to qualify for the tax credits, we run out of places to park. And so it's just another one of those projects that, you know, we've tried it twice, I think, since 3 times. I think almost twice or 1.5 since I've been here. So we run into this barrier at the end of trying to get that density on that property and be able to provide the parking spaces for that number of units. So we can continue the discussion. I'm happy to see if we can try to find another tax credit program, try it one more time. Be happy to shoot down that alley one more time.
Sure. Any other comments, concerns? Yes, ma'am.
Regarding the barbecue place out of Hickory House,
Yes, ma'am.
you guys are going to pursue getting that money back.
Yes, ma'am.
When Beebs and Bubs didn't live up to their end of the grant that you gave them, did you guys pursue that money also?
They did. They weren't in breach.
The agreement was that they were supposed to extend their hours, and they did it for like 45 days.
And that's good. I think a lot of people thought that was part of the agreement, but it wasn't.
I was here when we talked about it. I thought that was the whole purpose in it, so that they could extend their hours. That was what the walk-in was for, so they could have enough product to extend their hours. That wasn't, because I was here for that, and that's,
Sure.
wasn't that
and that
what
was
they
not,
said?
Yes, ma'am. So that was not actually part of the agreement. The agreement was tied to them staying open
Right.
for 3 years following the payment. So the
So-
extended hours were not part of the agreement, part of the funding agreement. That was something that was presented to us, and we've had other businesses, like the Levee Breaker, for example, and they were going to be non-smoking, and so those are things that would not be a direct breach of the agreement. I see what you mean.
Yeah,
If
because when
someone
I was here,
makes a promise.
I thought that was the whole purpose in getting that cooler, was to extend their hours. And I thought that was part of the agreement, that, if I remember in the meeting, I mean,
Well, yes, ma'am, and it was not. I can tell you that it was not.
okay, that was my question.
Nope, thank you, Pam.
Any other comments or questions? Yes, sir.
Who in the hell is he?
One, few things. As far as the low miller, if I remember right, they asked for about 10%.
Yes, sir.
And my opinion is anytime you can get a person walking in this town to drop, I believe his number is going to be about 600 grand in that property, and take and make it better, and you only have to put in 10%. I personally think you did a pretty good job. You've done a good job on the shopping center. We see a lot of cars. I seen a new roof go on. I see businesses open. And I know you haven't gave him any money yet. Not a penny. Reason why is because you're putting things in there as, you don't get your money till certificate of occupancy, you're meeting things. We're not handing this money out too soon. So that's a good thing. Hickory House, I'm glad to hear it. Row House, the only other question I got for you is we just had a meeting, and are we negotiating so that these people can be owners, so they're interested in putting any money in, or are we negotiating that these people will be leases or leaseors? Because we're going to have a hard time getting these people to put the amount of money that I would like to see to collect taxes if there isn't some type of ownership. I heard something of a land contract. I don't know. I haven't been to the meetings, but I would highly encourage you guys that whatever you do and whatever decision you make on this, that I think that you got less exposure if you make a deal with a developer and you say, hey, here's what I want to give you. There ain't no mystery. If you want to, I think everybody here realizes that some of these buildings we're going to have to participate in. Well, the amount of participation in us doing it, we pay too much for everything. We're not very good at it. Find you somebody that's good at doing what we're looking for, make a deal with them. If it's $200,000 that we're willing to do, you've got your number and you move on and you got something similar that you got at the shopping center. You don't have to think no more about it. But if we take these projects on, as complicated as they are, what happens to us? Everybody's seen it. You might think you're getting into something good, but unless we get our name out of it and say, hey, here's what we got for you at a certain time, I want good people owning these buildings. I want restaurants just as much as you guys do. I want this park to succeed. And you guys have made good deals. You've got nothing to be afraid of. If you keep doing what you've been doing, you're fine. We can't be worried about past decisions because you guys haven't done it wrong. I've watched it. You're doing a good job. Don't be afraid to make a deal with something and get somebody going, because here's also my thought. We got a park that's opening pretty soon, and I think it's going to work. I personally feel like that we should have somebody working on a couple buildings already. I know we ain't going to get it all done, but I really would like to see that hop in place, because now's the time. And you're doing a good job.
Thank you, Paul. I agree that we need ownership as opposed to leasing or whatever. Any other comments? Yes, sir. We have about 3 minutes.
How come you cautioned me with that time restraint?
We ain't bothering.
Hey, Low Miller, since you guys brought him up and Paul brought him up, Paul, to your comments earlier, it's the labor situation that he wants to train for builders. It's not an apprentice program, and that's such as the union does. And he was going to work with Mark Graver at Ivy Tech, as well as the high schools, to put that program in. And there seems to be a deficiency with builders here finding labor, like the Stobbs. I mean, I know all the builders, and they have trouble filling these things because they have guys that haven't built roofs. And so the whole thing was to put a prototype in there that they can build these things that are average, everyday necessities for builders, and start it, do it, and then start it, do it again and again and again in a program. But most of the building was for his offices, where he was going to actually consolidate 3 other offices here. Okay, and it was a big deal. And actually, it wasn't brought up tonight, but I asked him if he would be willing to put a personal guarantee up on the first half of the money, and he said he would. I don't know if that was in the agreement or not.
It is, yes, sir.
But that was a big deal for me, and I think we voted unanimously that night to award that to him. As Paul said, it was 10%. And to get that location redone into something phenomenal is pretty cheap for us, I would think. But just to reinforce that for you. Thanks, Mel.
Thank you, Dennis. Due to the time constraints, folks, if you have any more comments, save them for the next meeting. And I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Mel. Good meeting.
Ah, we did. They're always good meetings.
Brian, good meeting, man.